I want to expose my cheating mother. I live with my mom and stepdad, and about 2 months ago, I found out that my mom is cheating on my stepdad. This took me by surprise, but at the same time, it didn't, because almost every time they fight, divorce always comes up and they fight often. My mom even told me that she was going to wait until the holidays were over so that she could divorce my stepdad. My sister found out as well and actually confronted my mom about it, and it turned into a yelling match, with my mom eventually giving my sister the silent treatment. A few weeks after I found out my mom was cheating, I later figured out who the man my mom was having an affair with was, and I had already suspected him, so it wasn't that big of a surprise either. The way I found out was when my mom left her smartwatch on the counter, and on her phone the affair partner's contact name is. I had suspected it because she always has her phone with her and hides it when she's texting that person back, but on her watch was the guy's actual name, so when I found that out, I told my sister as well. This is where I might be the a-hole, but I told 2 of our family friends that I see as parents, and they seemed very shocked but comforted me and offered to let me spend the night whenever I wanted, which I really appreciated. Once my sister found out what I did, she yelled at me saying it was not my business to tell, but the situation is just weighing down so heavily I had to tell someone. My sister is already out of the house, so she doesn't have to deal with anything. Now, a few days ago, my AirPods were accidentally connected to my mom's phone, and Siri had read 2 messages to me. Both were from my mom's affair partner. They read, "When are you going to leave him? Every time that I ask you, you always deflect the question. And you are the only woman in my life, and I love you." Once I heard what the messages said, I immediately felt sick to my stomach, and all I wanted to do at that point was tell my stepdad everything, but I don't know what the consequences will be if I do tell him. I want to expose my cheating mother. I told my mom, and it went terribly in so many ways. So I'll start from yesterday, because that is when the whole fiasco happened. I didn't have a ride home from work yesterday, so I called my stepdad asking when he would be home and if he could pick me up as well, and he agreed, but while that happened, I didn't tell my mom because 1, wasn't home for more than an hour. 2, she had both of my younger siblings with her, and I know she would not want to buckle the kids in the car just for a 10-minute drive. And 3, she had a headache before she even got home. After my stepdad and I got home, my mom looked to be in a bad mood, but I disregarded it and asked if she had a headache, and the response I received was an ugly look and a short, yes. Once I realized what kind of mood she was in, I took that as my cue to go to my room. A little bit later my sister came into my room asking what I wanted for dinner, and after that, I came into the living room to hopefully have a regular conversation with my mom, but that didn't go to plan, because when she took notice of me, she started questioning me about why I didn't ask her to come to pick me up, and I told her the reasons I mentioned earlier. Well, that didn't sit too well with her, because she started ranting about how I'm so rude to her, always distancing myself from her, and that she was going to tell my therapist of my bad attitude. I will admit that I distanced myself from her because I don't want to be like her, I don't want to act like her, and I don't want to be compared to her. A reason for this is because my dad is my role model as well as my best friend, and no one will ever come close to replacing him. Another reason I distance myself from my mom is because of the comments and snide remarks that she makes. An example of this was when we went to eat as a family. I had finished my meal and I took one single bite out of my sister's chicken strip. She was already full and done with her food, and my mom looked at me and said, "Do you seriously need that?" Now this really upset me because I take a pharmaceutical for my depression, and one of the side effects is weight gain. I have gained 20 pounds since I started taking my medicine and have tried to cut down on my carb intake and how much I eat in a day, so after my mom made this comment I was hurt and upset. After she started the argument I cut her off by saying, "Mom, I know about you and affair partner." At first, she started gaslighting me by saying, "I don't even know what you're talking about. You don't even know what you're talking about." To then try to manipulate me and saying, "You're almost 18 years old and you need to know that the world doesn't owe you anything, and listen here, little girl who thinks she's so smart and knows everything. You have no business in what goes on in my personal life and marriage, and you have no idea what is said behind closed because you don't know the first thing of what it takes to be in a marriage. I've sacrificed 25 years of my life to give you and your siblings this life. And I know that you've always been jealous of your sibling because you made those comments the other day." Now at this point, I was crying and I had so many things I wanted to say, such as how many times she's mentioned her intimacy life to me, the comments she makes about her being miserable in her marriage, and her past substance use. Now the other day she and I were at the bank opening up an account, and I mentioned 2 to 3 how I used to be the baby of the family but not anymore, and I honestly meant it as a joke, but she, on the other hand, brought up the fact that she could have been done having kids if she stopped with me, how she had dogs instead of kids, and how if she didn't have kids she could have enjoyed her 30s and 40s carefree. After she stopped that part of her rant she asked who I told, and I answered by saying the 2 family friends and my girlfriend. She then made an assumption of why our family friend doesn't speak to her in person anymore, which was incorrect because they had surgery and were ill these past couple of weeks, and said thanks for ruining a friendship. Now I will say that is the only part that I feel slightly guilty for. My mom ended the one-sided conversation by saying, "And you can go ahead and tell stepdad's name, because I don't care and you'd be doing me a favor." Which shows how much she actually cares. Now on to today's story. I have access to my bank accounts, but I have not once touched a single penny of the money that is in my savings account because that money is for college and it has a large sum of money in it, over $40,000, and I checked it today only for me to see that the balance said $0. I immediately started freaking out, and once I clicked the transaction history, I saw that my mom transferred all of my money into her account. The transaction was made yesterday, so I think she did it after our argument. I don't know what to do now, honestly. If worse comes to worse, I will have to pay for my own college with the money I earn from my job, which I am prepared to do. I still haven't told my stepdad because I don't know how to, and I see my therapist later this week.